Hey guys, what's up? In front of me, I have almost every single part to build one of the sickest computers that I have ever built. In today's video, we are building my brand new dedicated streaming PC. If you don't know, on my Twitch, I use two different PCs, one for gaming and one for streaming. And my current streaming PC consists of a Threadripper motherboard laid out on top of its box with a cooler haphazardly mounted with a bunch of mixed match RAM. So I definitely need to replace it with something more permanent. So I thought about doing another ITX build, but sadly, the fact that I use Elgato's and other capture cards means that I can't exactly use ITX motherboards unless I use a really good CPU with integrated graphics, and those just don't exist. I'm going all out and building a sick dedicated streaming PC. Now, not only is this rig going to be insanely freaking powerful and optimized for dedicated streaming, it's also going to be near silent. My goal for today is to build a very quiet streaming PC with an epic theme. As you could probably tell by now, every part on this table is basically all black. This is going to be a minimalist, blacked out, all out build. Let's actually just get right into it. Let's talk about the parts while we're building up our motherboard. Today we're using the Asus TUF X299 Mark I motherboard. This is basically the gold standard of motherboards for X299. It wasn't that expensive at the time, especially for high-end desktop platform, and it is decked out with features. Grab our I/O shield. There we go. This thing is pretty insane. Since we're using the X299 platform, we're going to need an Intel X series processor, and thankfully I happen to have one. This is the Core i7-9800X. No, it is not the newest of Intel's X299 CPUs, although the platform is kind of old and starting to lose support, but this is still a pretty killer CPU. With a boost clock of 4.5 gigahertz, 8 cores and 16 threads, this thing is really all you need for streaming and gaming. Now, of course, this rig is just for dedicated streaming, which this thing will do perfectly for with 8 cores and 16 threads at a high speed, but if I need it for a backup gaming PC, this will do just fine. Man, I love the look of these CPUs. And just like that, we have it installed in our board. Now, as I mentioned, the CPU does support quad channel memory, so we are going with just that. These are 16 gigabyte DIMMs of Trident Z RGB DDR4 3000 megahertz. Now, technically the max supported speed for the CPU is 2666, which is probably just what I'll run at. I don't want to risk any instability on our system. So although these are rated for 3000 megahertz, and technically the CPU could probably handle 3000 megahertz RAM, I'm not going to do any overclocking on my RAM because, again, we just need it to be stable. We don't need the maximum performance, but we do have 64 gigabytes of this RAM just because it's like my only quad channel kit that's left. I am running out of RAM and it's all breaking. There we go. All that's installed. This board is getting pretty thick. And now it's time to install our cooler. This is the Dark Rock Pro 4 from BeQuiet. This is a massive tower air cooler capable of dissipating up to 250 watts of CPU heat. This thing is basically the best it gets for air cooling. So what I want to say is I actually want to thank BeQuiet for sending me this cooler as well as some other parts that I'm going to be using in this build. Quick story, I reached out to them to see about getting a case. One of their really nice cases that they make. It's a really good, it's actually a very cost-effective case. We'll be talking about in a minute. I'll be using it in this build. And they actually asked if I needed a cooler and power supply for my build. And I was like, yeah, well, yeah. And they sent me this beefy thing, dude. This thing is freaking awesome. So again, BeQuiet, really thank you guys so much for sending me this stuff. And of course, I will be linking all of the products that are relatively modern. So the power supply, CPU cooler, case, all will be linked in the description below. I won't be linking the motherboard or CPU. They're not really new anymore, so there's no point in really trying to find them. But I will be linking all the BeQuiet products I use in this video in the description below. Please check them out. They're freaking awesome. And again, thank you guys so much for sending me this stuff. I've installed the mounting bracket for LGA 2066. It's actually really not that hard. It's a really intuitive design. I do want to take off this plastic off the bottom. Wow, that is a sleek cooler. 7 heat pipes. Oh my god. This is going to be a cool and quiet build, so I want to use good thermal paste Arctic MX4. It's every video, every time I do a build, Arctic MX4 will be the worst way to kneecap your coolers to use crappy or not enough thermal paste. So we're going to get a nice 3 lines going on here for a good spread. You know, if it has all these rules about thermal paste, I just put enough. I'm like, that looks like it'll spread correctly. That lines up really well. So, it actually, this cooler, the Dark Rock Pro 4, comes with this screwdriver. And it's actually just a really long magnetic screwdriver. Thank you so much, BeQuiet, for making it magnetic. That is... Oh, you don't even know how frustrating it is not to use magnetic screwdrivers. So this is perfect. It's just really long because you stick it in the top. Really well designed mounting system, especially for these big coolers. I know it's very hard to get a good system design for something this big, but this thing is, man, it's so beefy. I love it. Let's actually, before I completely forget, so this has a custom 135mm fan, which goes right inside. Let's make sure I'm mounting it the correct way. Yes, do not include that. And there we go. We have our second internal fan mounted, with enough clearance and everything. Really well mounted, the board, second off. Now, I'm actually surprised, but since we're using SATA SSDs, because it's the only SSD that has all my stuff on it, I actually don't think I need anything else to this board. This, again, don't do this at home. Wow, that's really well mounted. This board is actually, I think, completely done. Wow, that is a thick cooler, but again, this board is so reinforced that this is perfect for this heavy-duty cooler, but man, alright. So next up is we gotta get this thing into our case and have our rest of our system built. So I'm gonna put this away, I'm gonna grab our case real quick. For our case today, we are using this beast. This is the BeQuiet Pure Base 500DX. And this mid-range standard ATX case is pretty freaking cool. This was actually the case that I had asked BeQuiet to send me originally. I did reach out and ask if I could get one of these for the build because this is such a nice, minimalist, but not boring cases. This case is actually pretty decked out and pretty featured. Not only does it come with 3 140mm BeQuiet Silent Wings fans, it actually also has RGB on the front, but that's it. It just has this RGB going along the front, which is super cool. It's a nice little accent, and it'll perfectly match our internal components, especially since we can sync it all up in software, which is awesome. Now, it does have a tempered glass side as well, but I do have it off because it is extremely reflective in the camera. And one thing I want to do right now is actually take this back panel off. I have not opened up this case yet, but definitely feels high quality. I will, of course, again, link this in the description below because the reason I asked for this case is I actually wanted to use it in a build and possibly a dedicated review video because it is a very cost-effective and high-quality case. I will save the rest of my judgment for after I actually build in the thing. So we have our accessories box shoved pretty neatly into the hard drive tray. Pretty standard. What do we get for our accessories? You know what? Zip ties. I was actually kind of hoping for those. We've got... Let me show you guys this. Plenty of room for, even if we were using like an extra long and very powerful power supply. We do have a dual hard drive mount with more mounts up here for what looks like SSDs, which I'll actually be using that mount today, for our 1TB inland professional drive, which is what has my streaming setup and some games on it we can actually go ahead and test at some point. Alright, as for cables, we have a 5V addressable RGB header for our front panel. We've got USB 3.0 Type A, USB 3.1 Gen something, whatever it's called, Type C, because our front panel of this case does actually have a Type C, if you can see that. Very nice, and our motherboard does have the connectors for it. And then we have power switch, power LED plus and minus, and that's it. Oh, and front panel audio. I don't use that. And a SATA power. I believe that's for... Yes, this is also for the RGB strip, to my knowledge. Oh, wait a minute. Is this what I think it is? So there's 2 thumb screws right here. And does this do what I think it does? Oh, that is amazing. That allows us to take out the hard drive sled, which actually gives us a ton more room under here. This is insane. Just look at that. That is so much extra room under, but I don't really need that much extra room, which means I can populate this with hard drives. Now, I know it's a little bit overkill, but why not? I'm going to install 4 terabytes of hard drive storage on this rig. So this is two 2TB Seagate Barracuda drives that I happen to have just sitting around. I don't really need or have a use for any of them. And my storage server is actually going to be using a lot of repurposed 500 gig drives, so might as well grab some 2 terabytes and go for it. So mounting in this seems really easy and straightforward. It just seems like you kind of just shove the drive in, and then it friction mounts until you can, just screw it in. That's actually really simple. I'm using this screwdriver the whole time. I mean, free screwdriver, it's actually really good. And there we go, just like that, we've got 4 terabytes of hard drive space. This is just for recording too and stuff like that. I might keep that in mind if I ever want to, I don't know, make a gaming channel or whatever. Not that I plan on it, but, and I'm just gonna screw this back in. That's so seamless. Again, high quality features in a mid-range case. Love to see it. Next thing I'm gonna do while I have the chance behind this case is actually just mount our 1 terabyte SSD right up here. I think this will be the simplest place to mount it. So the next thing I actually want to do is cable manage and install our power supply, which I actually want to do before I install my motherboard, which may be a little backwards, but that's how I prefer to do it. It gives me a second to actually talk about the insanely awesome power supply we have for today's build. You can tell there's a theme here. This is the Straight Power 11 from BeQuiet. This is a fully modular 750 watt, 80 plus platinum power supply. This thing checks all of the boxes. So I did open it up just to look at it a little bit before because it's such a sexy unit. And it's heavy. This is it. There we go. Again, being fully modular, we have all of our modular cables. So let's talk about this absolute monster here for a second. So, yes, this is a 750 watt, 80 plus platinum unit. And again, when I asked for a case for a review and for my build, again, I was offered a PSU with that cooler, and I was not expecting to get the platinum, 80 plus platinum version of this cooler. It's actually pretty decently priced. I, again, will be leaving a link in the description below. But this thing is basically stacked out. So, for our build, let's see what power cables we're going to need here. We're going to connect, even though it is modular, and there's plenty of space, I do want to connect our power cables first. It just makes things a lot easier. Wow. And these are really high quality cables. This is one of the nicest PSUs I have ever worked with. This is one of the 2 options for our CPU 8-pin EPS connectors. The motherboard has a 8 plus 4-pin connectors for our CPU. We only really need the 8-pin, but it couldn't hurt to have both. And it's got this. This is it's their end, obviously one of their, it's the 12-pin from the power supply to 2 sets of 4 plus 4 for the motherboard. Actually, one is 8. Okay, perfect. And one is 4 plus 4. I'm going to use this. This thing is freaking awesome. That is really well thought out. And of course, the other option is just a standard 4 plus 4 pin connector. That's awesome. Again, it really cuts down on the amount of connectors that this power supply needs on it. Alright, and as for graphics card power, of course it comes with 2 of these 2 by 6 plus 2 pin PCIe power connectors. So I'm just going to connect one. That's really all we need. And now for drives and stuff. So we have a SATA. Well, this is a 4 chain of SATA. We do have 4 SATA devices, so I wonder if I can actually, this is a really cute connector, so I wonder if I can actually get away with just 1 SATA connector. I'm actually going to just test that out right here, 1 sec. Yeah, honestly, I probably can. So what I'm going to do next is actually install this into our case, which should be really simple. Oh, it slides in like that. Okay. I am actually a big fan of this mounting style. It basically, you put this back plate on the power supply and then you just slide it into the back. So that's what I'm going to start doing now. All right. Now that our PSU unit is nice and secure in our case, and this thing is looking sexy, I'm going to spend a minute routing and zip tying cables and stuff like that so that we are ready to install our motherboard. So I'm going to do that. I'll be right back when that is complete so we can install our board into this case. Alright guys, so I actually went ahead and installed the motherboard, which really wasn't that interesting. It just kind of slotted in, I screwed it in. I would have recorded it, but my camera and mic were being so annoying, as you can tell by the fact I'm wearing a different shirt. It's a different day. But that's the point. Let's get this build finished, because I actually have a stream at the time of recording this video. I have a stream in like an hour, so I need to get this build up and running right away. So, right here we have our PCI Express card, which is our last step to setting up this build. Here's what we have. We have 1 graphics card, 2 Elgato's, a 4K 60 and a HD 60 Pro, and we actually have a second graphics card. This is a GTX 1070 Katana. It is a single slot GTX 1070 that we'll be using this build as our secondary graphics card. Our main card will obviously be this. This is the insane AMD RX 580. Yeah, I know, it's really not the most insane card in the world. It just has this beefy-ass cooler. Yes, the reason I'm using a 580 is because for dedicated streaming, I don't really need an insane graphics card. Something 580 or something AMD 500 series or NVIDIA 10 series or higher. A 1070 and a 580 are fine. The reason I'm using two separate cards is because I will have two separate data streams depending on what I'm doing. Let's say I'm streaming and benchmarking at the same time or for some reason, I don't know. Basically, it's just better to have two graphics cards when you have two separate Elgatos. Typically, just I don't know, makes things easier. You can split the load, maybe use your CPU encoding on one and Pascal encoder on the other. This is the point. Let's get these installed in our system. So in our top slot, we're going to have our main card, this Sexalicious RX 580 from ROG. And I'm just going to board. It's not the greatest for PCI Express compatibility. What are we getting stuck on? There we go. We got that all hooked up to our 580. I'm not sure how I feel about routing the cable like this. I just felt it was the best to go over the card, especially as to avoid the triple fans down here to keep this card nice and cool. So this card has a 0 fan mode. Basically, if it's under like 50 degrees, the fans will just stay off. So if I can keep this system nice and cool, especially since we have this 140mm Pure Wings 2 fan in the front, it should actually keep this card really cool because it won't really be under that much load even while recording stuff like that. So our second card will be this single slot GTX 1070. Get that connected from the bottom just like so. Now we have two cards on the system. Now, I'm kind of taking a risk putting an AMD and an NVIDIA card together. I don't think that'll be a problem, especially since the 1070 and RX 580, like, I've never really had them conflict with each other in the same systems. They're very similar cards, so I actually often use them together for stuff like this. But, you know, every system's different. In worst case scenario, I will take out the 1070 Katana. Now it's time for our two capture cards. Again, we have a 4K 60 Pro for my stream because I actually use a 1440p 144Hz monitor on my gaming computer. So I like to have at least a card that can capture 1440p 144 Hz, but then I just downscale it to 1080p for the stream. But since it acts as a monitor, it's actually really nice, and it allows my monitor to work at its full speed. So we're going to slot in our 4K 60 Pro right under our 1070. Using almost all of our PCI Express slots here. There we go, Elgato is in and secure, and then on our bottom slot, we're going to install our HD60. There's the HD60 Pro. Basically, all this is for is for our 1080p recording. Let's say I want to use my camera to maybe live stream some builds. I could actually just use this PC and then stream the setup and maybe live stream a PC build. And now looking inside, we end up with a very sleek and sexy build. It's, I wouldn't say crowded, but yeah, it is packed full of stuff. We got this giant heatsink tower here to keep our CPU nice and cool. We've got our RX 580 ROG Strix version, a 1070 Katana, and two capture cards. I actually want to show you guys the back. I just love how cohesive the back looks. You know, we have our graphics cards, capture cards, power supply. I can't actually see, but our power supply, very nice printing on the back of this power supply. It looks nice. This is a nice looking build. All that's left to do is power it up, I think. Let's turn this thing on and hear how quiet it is. Oh, wow. I didn't even notice this. There's a lighting strip on top of the case. Oh, that orange is sexy. Of course, I can sync up all of our lighting. Let's see. Let's try this button. All right, I dig the purple. Oh, the RGB. Yes. This system looks sexy. I don't have any RGB control software on this, and I'm not going to install any yet, but wow. The internal RGB strip, again, on a case that's not very expensive. Having internal RGB strips is pretty nice. But what I want to do quickly is run a game. Our CPU is running at idle at 25 degrees Celsius right now. For an air cooler that is silent, 25 degrees Celsius on a 9800X is awesome. I had a liquid cooler that couldn't even do that. That is insane. But I want to test this thing off with a heavy load, so we're going to play a game here in a sec. I'm going to quickly hop into a game of Grand Theft Auto 5, because I want to see how hot our CPU is going to get, and especially how loud this system is going to get. Although, I'm kind of expecting it to not get very loud, and I think with the side panel on, it's going to be dead silent. The only things I can hear is when I get close to the fans, I can, well, hear the fan spinning. But if I can't get that close to the fans, because the case is closed now. Launching into GTA 5, running 100% of our RX 580, and our RX 580 is actually staying, like, it is running at a 100% load on Grand Theft Auto 5, and it's not even getting to 50 degrees! And it's not even at 50 degrees yet, which is the cutoff for when the fans turn on. The fans are not even on our card yet. Oh, we're about to hit 50 degrees, and our fans are going to turn on. I am trying to get a load going. Our CPU is at about 31% usage right now, holding a nice 4.1 gigahertz all-core boost, and it is running at a cool 40 degrees under load. But no, this is more than amazing. Nope, this system is extremely quiet, even under load, which is perfect for our streaming setup. Using an Intel X series CPU and 2 graphics cards that actually kick out a lot of heat. The 1070 Katana and the RX 580 Strix are definitely not exactly cool cards, but this heatsink is more than enough for this card. So this is like the perfect system for silence. I'm gonna go hook this thing up for streaming. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys kind of enjoyed, and thank you so much to BeQuiet for sending me the case. This is, again, the Pure Base 500DX. This thing is pretty awesome. RGB on the front, RGB strip on top. Really, it is a premium. Again, they have not sponsored, they have not paid me for an ad. They simply, I just asked them if I could review the case because I was interested in it, and it was a premium building experience. That's all I'm gonna say. There was a lot of room in the back to build. It came with zip ties. There are a ton of zip tie points in the back. Cable management, even for me, who sucks at cable management, was easy. It was easy, and our build looked sexy. Not to mention, it is very quiet. And it comes with 140mm fans, which is a pretty good deal. I will, of course, leave a link to that in the description below. Thank you also, BeQuiet, for sending me the power supply and cooler. The Dark Rock Pro 4 cooler. It's obviously a little overkill, but definitely worth it. And of course, the straight Power 11 and 80 plus platinum power supply. I don't get the chance very often to work with 80 plus platinum units, especially not ones of this quality. 750 watts is great. It's very efficient, obviously. So again, thank you, BeQuiet, so much, guys. And again, if you want to check out any of these products, you can find them in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys. I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Do you really feel the way I feel? I'm walking in Memphis.